From the southernmost point of Dorne to the lands of always winter, what is west of Westeros and the shadows in the east. Oh, those shadows that hang there. This is Casterly Talk. I'm Ken Napzok, joined again by Alden Diaz. And Alden, we've got a lot to get to. We are going to get right to it, breaking up some of the big news of the week, whether it be House of the Dragon, Rings of Power, George R. R. Martin, breaking up into little videos. Alden, we got an Entertainment Weekly news dump, a Nick Romano written article, great article, pictures, insights, so much to break down. Are you excited as I am, sir?
So excited. It's one thing to get just great covers, which they delivered on. Unfortunately, no longer print. In the age of digital covers, they move and it's cool. But it was one thing just to get that, because then it could be also, you know, we're going to feature House of the Dragon and we just gave it the cover. But no, they went as hard as they could in a spread. This was full steam ahead mode. It was very exciting.
Yeah, you know, this is kind of the, whether it be Star Wars, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, any kind of these big IP properties. When you get to the ET, Entertainment Weekly or Entertainment Tonight or Variety, and they do their big previews, I've always loved those. Back to the early days in the 90s, you know, the Vanity Fair. It's just exciting. It's nerd chilled time, and it gets you geeked up, and that's what we're here to celebrate and discuss today.
Yeah, and in this season that will be probably the most packed nerd season of all times. Not since the days of Iron Man versus the Dark Knight have we seen something this packed and heavy. It's good to have these focused pieces to tell us about one thing.
And we're not here for the competition. We're here to enjoy all, whether it be Rings of Power, House of the Dragon, and or The Return of Bad Batch, any other property you out there all love. We love it. We love it. We're here to dive in. We'll see how it affects our lives, what we can take from what themes will drive these stories forward. Here in Casterly Talk, we focus on the world of Ice and Fire, but also Rings of Power. So we are going to be taking a look at that teaser trailer on this channel and on this podcast feed as well. Alden, let's dive into the Entertainment Weekly stuff. Up top, what are some things that you took from this article that you absolutely love and want to talk about?
I think that the insights about character in the article and in the two-person interview with Matt Smith and Emma Darcy are just that they understand that this is a people first thing in ways that, not to knock other properties, but that's sort of been the zeitgeist thing for Game of Thrones has been, of course, like machinations, politics, like that's what you hear, but really it's motivations and like why these people are the way that they are hangs over everything that they released, whether it was an exciting image or these interview quotes. So I just came away thinking I'm in the mode now to get to really know these people.
Yeah, it was kind of fun to see the actors kind of did that great 10-minute kind of BTS video package, whatever you want to call it there. It was great to see them move and speak, and even as themselves, but in the costumes. That had a weird reaction. I had a weird reaction to that. Like, I just loved seeing that, and it made it, number one, more real, but two, just to hear them talk about their characters made me excited, because you're right. That's what brings it in with the dragons and the flames and the swords and the big fights. We are going to have those big events, and we're going to love those, but those are nothing without the characters. And I love seeing the characters kind of come to life with these interviews here. So good stuff. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, that was a big theme. Even though it is them, it's not the characters. That's part of what we love. We love seeing Peter Dinklage dance around in his shackles in Game of Thrones days, and that sort of translates here. But that's not to say that the cool aesthetics and fantasy stuff didn't hit, because I also texted you and said this is the best fantasy armor I've ever seen. Seeing Daemon in his full Targaryen getup, it's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. The Daemon Targaryen, you know, armor, so he can wield Dark Sister with all the strength and hubris that we want him to have. Great stuff there. And speaking of like designs, this article starts with Miguel Sapochnik talking about the throne. We've already made a lot of our discussion points have been around the throne, the additional swords. Yes, that moves it a little bit closer to George R. R. Martin's book version, but also shows the Targaryen dynasty where it is now and where it will be by the time it's gone when we meet it again 200 years later. So it tracks for us. But I like that they started the article with that because they also snuck in some things about, it's closer to George's design. George had some issues with that, and we have George's blessing. It was a sneaky way to say, hey, if you had some doubts before, George is on board, so come on in here.
Absolutely. It's the classiest way that they can say that. While for like this is firm prequel territory,
Yeah,
nobody is ever saying this is our adaptation of the material. It's still a prequel to Game of Thrones, HBO's Game of Thrones. But there is sort of that, to invoke another fantasy property, the different Harry Potter directors could never agree really on where Hagrid's hut should be on the Hogwarts campus. It's
right.
always in a different location every movie. And sometimes that's in the spirit of movie accuracy, sometimes in the spirit of book accuracy. And but we're still playing in that family, and it's no disrespect. And it was just fun to see that.
No, fun to see that, and I think it was there's some comments from Ryan Condal in this as well of like, look, Fire and Blood. And I'm paraphrasing totally here, but Fire and Blood exists. We're drawn from that, but there's a lot of room, and we're going to kind of tell a certain perspective, I guess, on the story. And I kind of like that approach. I think it gives them room to hopefully do some things with the story that they want as showrunners.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that the freedom is important, but also that relationship with the text is important. And for us fans, it's important to exist right in between, right in that wiggle room of, oh, I'm really excited to see this event. But they might present that event to you in a curveball way.
Yeah.
And that's what's exciting about it, is being able to, like Game of Thrones fans that loved those books going back to that first one in the 90s, they are able to watch HBO's Game of Thrones. And if they open their hearts, they might see, oh, well, that character was combined with this character, but I really like that they found this new angle. Or look at something like Talisa Stark being an original character versus Rob's marriage in the novels and how that changes. It was able to provide new depth. So that's exciting.
Yeah, and an upcoming video or an episode released at the same time as this, we're going to dive a little bit into George R. R. Martin and more talk about his endings in the books, but we're not there yet. We're talking House of the Dragon. One other thing I love, speaking about Game of Thrones, we brought it up all the time, and I don't think you can move too far away from the talking point, Alden, that we know the show exists. We know that it's still beloved. It's still getting great numbers on streaming. It's still one of the highest streamed series, but also it's one of the shows that sparks, cantankerous discourse at best. The showrunners and everyone involved are very much aware of that. And there was quotes from like Patty Considine playing Viserys I says, I think people start to write their own endings, speaking about the end of Game of Thrones. He even kind of admitted to having, hey, I had that kind of thing too. So they're gonna try to move past that. Matt Smith starts that video, says one hopes they come to it with a fresh palette, so to speak. And then Ryan Condal talks about, hey, we got to get across, here's what you love wrapped up in a different packaging. Makes a lot of sense. I think we can bang this drum a lot, Alden, but as we get closer, the messaging starts to become a little more clear from them.
I think that's definitely a concerted effort, not from a cynical place. I don't think anyone at this team is saying, let's get ahead of how they messed up, but really in the sense of, having Matt Smith there is actually appropriate because he's been in this situation. He's had it all on his shoulders. A massive property that is built on change. Whether it's James Bond or Doctor Who are sort of the two things that are built on doing this. And he was the Doctor. He was the youngest Doctor they ever had, coming off of the hottest Doctor they ever had, the most popular iteration. And he has to follow that. So he's been in these high pressure scenarios before and has had to win the hearts of everybody. And I think that spirit permeating the entire team and them saying, we are that, but we're also ourselves and take us on our terms. They're being honest up front, and that should be rewarded, I think.
Yeah, at least some room given. We hope for the show there for those that are curious. But I you know what, I got to tell you what, out on the streets for a living. If you like the old Kiss Black Diamond song there. Shout out to Scotty from the Bomb Bad podcast. I don't hear a lot of people as grumpy as up toward this show. I think there is a lot of hope in it, or at least a lot of, you know what, I'll see. And for me, for a fan of Game of Thrones, the series from season 1 to season 8, that's what I'll take. That's all I want from you. Just, hey, come on, give it a shot. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah, for people that are disappointed with season 8 or middling on it or just straight up hated it, I want to see, and I would love to see, and I would love to be a part of the process of the return. I would like, for me, when I'm disappointed with something that I love, whether that's any franchise or pro wrestling or the broadcasting industry, I want to be surprised and fall back in love on the next thing. I don't want to be we're broken up forever. I'm a romantic that way. So I want people to have that.
You're a sweetheart who writes poems to Game of Thrones. I get it.
Come back.
What are some of the other things that jumped out of you in this wonderful article here?
I really loved the approach of well, specifically with Emma Darcy, who I know we wanted to make a note that in the spirit of learning and in the spirit of being able to spread that knowledge, uses they them pronouns. So we wanted to make that note. If we've ever misidentified this performer before, we want to get in front of that and be sure to make sure that knowledge spreads, because you can only find out if someone tells you or if you read it. Yeah. Their perspective on this character in the article and in that video that is in the article is just phenomenal and timely, and has shades of who we know will be their last descendant with Daenerys, or aside from Jon. So there's a connectivity there where I think Thrones fans will be able to latch onto that and say, oh, it's the woman in this society. It's this type of character. Rhaenyra is this daughter who was placed in this position that they didn't ask to be placed in, and the world is going to react in XYZ ways. And the way that they broke down this woman and how they broke down how they're going to embody them, I thought was probably some of the most fascinating stuff.
No, absolutely. This article is pretty direct about women being the forefront of the story, and Rhaenyra being called perhaps the most important role in the series. And to hear Emma Darcy talk about it and hear them kind of go into the detail of Rhaenyra kind of being, this is maybe my own words, at war with her not just her gender or the gender role around her, but what she likes, what she pushes for, pushing the boundaries of her supposed role in this society. She's a dragon rider. She's a fighter. She even mentions, I'm talking about Rhaenyra, mentioning that like the idea of the realm's delight, the nickname put upon her, is not something that Rhaenyra agrees with, because it's passive. It means I'm just there to be ogled in so many different ways. And so I love that being a start, and how she looks across the aisle, so to speak, at her uncle Daemon, and it's like, maleness represents freedom in this society, and how do I get towards that, and how do I deal with who I am and where I am and all that. That's fascinating stuff. We kind of talked about this before, but to see it put there right in the forefront, I think it's really important to note.
100%. And knowing that labels and the freedom that comes with being a man are going to be so core to this in 2022's show premiere is really exciting, because Game of Thrones season 1 was setting up these themes with Arya, with Tyrion and Jon, of wear it like armor and it can never be used to hurt you, about how the world will tell you who you are. But I'm excited to see that with the decade plus of societal growth and storytelling growth that we've all had. So it's almost like we're going to sequelize themes of Game of Thrones through a prequel to Game of Thrones. We're going to build while going back.
Yeah, absolutely. Build by going back. I love that. And I think it was Millie Alcock saying, like, yeah, she auditioned for the young Rhaenyra roles with lines from Arya Stark and how the connections there. And and I think we don't want to get into a discussion on GOT, the show. Like, I still think that some of the painful, horrible lessons that show is trying to put out there of these women in power and what was done to them and what they try to do to overcome it, and how there's some cost to all that, and there's deeper stuff there, we know, and how they handled it is always up for debate. And I think the show Game of Thrones was conceived in such a different time where the expectations were different, and this show is not. And this article made me really excited to know that everyone on board understands the era in which this show is being developed, shot, and put out into the world.
Absolutely, 100%. And being able to combine that with the powerful aesthetics, that it's an understanding of character, and it's an understanding of iconography that have to come together. And that's how you make something as impactful as what they're going for.
Yeah, we're trying to be as quick as we can, Alden. We want to get the news out here on the YouTube channel or on the podcast side, but a couple minutes left here. I do want to get some of the big things. What other things that are there? I think we talked about some of the bigger stuff, the themes, the details of confirming. Slight spoiler: we're starting with the Great Council of 101 AC. I love the discussion around the sea snake and what his house means and what they represent at this time, because it's a house that ain't going to be there 200 years later. And just seeing Rhaenys and her involvement in that. Loved all that. What were some of the big stuff? Did you like any of that? And what are the other kind of things that you pulled away from it? And just the cool pictures, armor, and anything else?
Yeah, there's that picture of, is it Jaehaerys, correct? Like there's that picture of, that picture of Jaehaerys just like was awe-inspiring to me, even though there's a man sitting. He's not, but to see a great Targaryen king. Not that Viserys isn't, of course he is, but an elder statesman, elder statesman, was really exciting. Whatever context that we see him in, or what that's going to be, how they present it. But I thought that was the other image that stuck out to me outside of emo dragon armor.
Emo dragon armor. Yeah, and a lot of great stuff from Paddy Considine about Viserys I, who will be key to the story, at least the beginning of the story in this season. And this idea of a good man that doesn't necessarily mean a bad king, and how he does have an ego, and part of that ego is protecting this peace, and how Ryan Condal does call this a show that is essentially about the height of Rome, which is always interesting because that show didn't work on HBO either.
Yeah.
2 seasons of Rome. We all wanted more, I'm sure. Big final thoughts from you, Alden, here.
My final thoughts are that I've never been more excited, and that I think that now is the time to carve out your own identity, really express yourself. And I am excited for what I'm presuming would be the last step, a final trailer. I love everything that we saw here.
Oh yeah, and we're getting ready for that. Yeah, I'm glad it didn't happen this week. There's a lot to cover this week. Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, but I cannot wait for something like that to pop up and start to just see how the actual season's going to play out. Alden, as always, appreciate you jumping in here. It was really hard for you and I to stop our sentences because we love to talk about themes and Game of Thrones and all those things.
I think that we both have worked in radio, both in rock radio at different times. A lot of weird parallels in our lives, but I've been watching this clock, proud of myself for how short it's come in.
Yeah, well, that's just something we want to do. We want to get straight to the news. We'll have longer form discussions next week and beyond. Don't you worry about that, folks. We want to get this news out there and get new eyes here on the show. If you're listening to Casterly Talk, thank you for listening to the podcast. You can find it wherever you find podcasts. You can also then go subscribe to the YouTube channel, Casterly Talk, as we build that out and want to make something really fun and just celebratory here of the world with this channel. We got some kind of explainer videos coming, getting you ready for House of Dragon in a simple, direct way. We'll also be covering Rings of Power. So also you can find our episode on the Rings of Power main teaser trailer, and also have an episode out as well this week about the George R. R. Martin talk around his ending. Now it's getting farther away from the shows. You can follow me at Napzok. Alden, where do you want them to follow you? Because sometimes that changes thanks to Twitter.
Yes. Well, thankfully, I've been at that Alden Diaz for a little while now, and hopefully it's going to stay that way with all those double verifications and everything. So ThatAlden Diaz on Twitter and Instagram.
There you go. And if you like Alden's discussions on themes and how he dives right on in, don't forget to check out his Star Wars podcast, Octo Radio. You got to say it with the like I do. And then there you go. That's it for now, my friends. You are listening, watching, and supporting Casterly Talk, and we appreciate it. We'll see you next time here on Casterly Talk.